Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Good afternoon and welcome to Engage for Success radio show number 640, Leading Beyond Results. Today we're going to be talking about the hidden traps of today's results-obsessed culture. I'm Jo Dodds, your host for today. I'm an engagement consultant working within the Engage for Success core team. The Engage for Success movement is an inclusive movement committed to the idea that there is a better way to work by releasing more of the capability and potential of people at work. We spread the word about employee engagement and shine a light on good practice, inspiring people and workplaces to thrive. And we're widely supported across the UK, involving the public, private and third sectors. If you go to our website, engageforsuccess.org, then you can use the link at the bottom of the page to join our newsletter list, and all our social media links are there too. So my guest today is Markus Draeger, who's author of Leading Beyond Results. And I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your surname, Markus. Was that okay?
This was perfect. Thank you.
Remembering my O-level German. Lovely. Excellent. So welcome. Start by telling us a bit about who you are, what you do, and about your book.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me. My name is Markus Draeger, and I'm the author of the book Leading Beyond Results. But before I became an author, I had a corporate career of about 20 years in an international corporate organization headquartered in Denmark, in North Europe. Then a couple of years ago, I decided to step down from the corporate career ladder. I became a sports psychologist, took a sabbatical, got educated as a sports psychological expert. And during that time, I kind of found out that there's so much we can learn from sports psychology that I would love to be implemented in the corporate world or in the business world at all. And this is when I decided to become a leadership coach and a team coach. And nowadays I'm coaching leaders and coaching teams and coaching organizations towards a healthy and sustainable performance culture.
Lovely. So that's quite a big change then, a big sort of decision to move from a corporate role into something a bit different and via the sports world. So what sort of prompted that?
Yeah, but prompted that was maybe even a little bit of boredom, because I have been in a fantastic company, to be honest, for more than 20 years. I had a fantastic combination between, a little bit of a safety net, being a part of a big organization, and still having enough freedom to learn and to grow and to try out things. I've been in several positions in marketing, then later on in the human resource department. But then, after 20 years, you kind of, the drill, and you see that there are so many things that are being repeated. And this is when I thought, okay, I needed a change, and that was basically prompting it. But the other one was for sure also that over the 20 years, I had many years of this career where I was going the extra mile. And by going the extra mile, I also kind of forget some other things like health, like hobbies, like family. So I took some compromises in order to climb the career ladder. I came to the realization that, okay, I think now is time to change something. And this is when I, kind of stopped my career and took a change. But again, with no regrets at all. But now I'm happy that I did it.
Yes. And why the focus on the sports world?
I think it comes more from being an athlete myself. I like sports. I've been playing football in the fourth league in Germany, and I know kind of how it feels to be under pressure and to perform under pressure. And I was just interested in what I could learn from sports psychology to become even better working under pressure. But what I realized there was basically quite surprising, because what I realized there is that sports psychology is not necessarily only to learn how to perform under pressure, but it was very much about how to perform in the long run, how to perform in a healthy and sustainable and holistic manner. And this is what really excited me in the sport psychology.
Mhm, mhm. So let's talk a bit more about that and how it relates to the corporate world then. So what lessons are we taking from elite sport to the corporate world? What's most relevant for leaders now?
Yeah, there are of course a multiple. So in my book, I even pointed out more than 100, let's say, thinking patterns that are kind of preventing us from delivering sustainable performance in the corporate world. But if I need to name one that is maybe an overarching one, is that um, results are just a consequence of something else. Results are the consequence of the way we think, the way we act, and it's and to understand this and then not focus on the results, but focus on what makes the likelihood higher to get great results. That is something that we do in sports quite well, I think. If you just take one example, focusing on body language, right? This is something that is a success parameter in order to be successful, in order to perform. And we are focusing quite a lot on body language. And only after the match, we are looking at the scoreboard and see if everything that we committed to, and not only the body language, also following the match plan, contributing with the role that we are supposed to play, all this kind of stuff. That is kind of what we are focusing on during the week. And then we see if the result, if the consequence is what we intended to have. And
Hmm.
what I see in the corporate world is kind of the opposite. It's kind of
Yeah.
that we are not driving results proactively, but we are almost driven by results. And this is, I think, something we can definitely learn from sports.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When I sort of think about being in the corporate space and how much emphasis there is on results and reports and meetings to discuss sales or to discuss profit or whatever, I don't know that there's as much emphasis on meetings to discuss the input to it, sort of thing. So how do you present that within a corporate space so people understand that, and how do you get people thinking about that rather than being focused entirely on the other end, the consequence?
Yeah. So I basically see two different companies that I'm working with, and they are in kind of different spaces. So we have companies who are really driven by results because they have a very, very sophisticated performance management system with a lot of hundreds of key performance indicators, and they are basically running the company according to the dashboard. And with those companies, I'm basically working on so-called observable behaviors that we say, okay, so what brought you here? So what is really, underlying, what is below the iceberg? What kind of behavior is basically leading to these results? And, opening up the space for discussion around, the right mindset, the right attitude, and especially observable behavior, so that we not say performance can be measured. It can, but it can also be observed. And we are really trying to work with the leaders to focus more on the observable behaviors next to the measurable results. And don't get me wrong, I'm really, really still obsessed on results. But I just believe that just looking at the scoreboard every minute, it will not help you in sports, and it will also not help you in business.
Hmm. Yeah.
And maybe to add to this one, so that's kind of the one company who's more performance oriented with all these performance management dashboards, etc. But then we also see that there are a lot of companies who have been quite, let's say, influenced by, let's say, the modern leadership, by other ways of working, by the fact that it's harder to get the right manpower. And with these clients, it's kind of the opposite. They almost lost track on measuring results, and they are basically on the on the other side of the pendulum. And I really believe, and that's definitely something we see in sports, when you combine both sides, so the human edge and the being driven by key performance indicators, measuring results, measuring indicators. By combining these two, this is when you get into the very sustainable, high performance culture that is really also fun to be part of.
And you mentioned healthy performance quite a few times since we started. Tell me more about why you have healthy in there.
I have healthy in there because we know that the values are shifting right now. I mean, the my generation. I'm now 53. I mean, we were almost used to work long hours because it was just something that we found almost normal. If I see the new generation, not all of them are kind of willing to do that. And now we can say, okay, but this is not acceptable. I think it is. I think it's absolutely acceptable that they have a different value system. They have a different frame. They are socialized differently, and I think we need to find a way in the corporate world to accept this new reality. And instead of asking for the extra mile all the time, and seeing long working hours and taking the extra mile as the performance indicator number one, I think we should find ways within the given time frame, whatever it is, 40 hours, for example, in Germany, in some companies, to just do a better job, just working on the right things, setting the right priorities, and then harvesting results afterwards. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is a very simple one, that healthy people are usually delivering better results. And if we have leaders who are completely overworked, they will most likely not take the right decisions. They will not be creative. They will not be innovative. They will not be empathic. If everyone is in this survival mode, working 60, 80 hours a week, we will simply not create a high-performing context.
So how do you work with people to change that? I mean, I'm now working in a full-time role. I haven't done that for a long time. In fact, I was telling people 22 years. It's a bit of a culture shock. And I feel like I'm really sort of a productive person who can sort of see that bigger picture. But when you've got like seemingly 25 million different moving parts and all sorts of different priorities throughout an organization, it's quite hard to sort of fit into that and get on top of that and not get dragged into that. So how do you work with people, and what do you think people should do to sort of see the performance and the culture and how they fit within it and keep things healthy and all that sort of stuff? How do you think they should? This is just a question for me personally, clearly.
Yeah. So what we usually start with, it starts with the individual. So what we usually start with is that we make leaders more aware of themselves, to understand themselves a little bit better. We are working with understanding your drivers, understanding your values, and then at the end, really also understanding your thinking patterns, because your thinking patterns makes you either working very, very hard and extra hours, or it make you, working, let's say in a healthy manner, right? This is very much about thinking patterns. And we always try to find out, what is really behind this behavior. That's one thing. That's more on the individual. Then, of course, there are a lot of techniques, as you know them most likely yourself. We work, of course, with the Eisenhower matrix, where we just, enable entire teams and organizations to understand that there's a difference between important topics and urgent topics. And not every call of your manager is urgent and important. So just having a discussion in the teams we are working with, especially in the management teams, having a discussion about how do we define important and how do we define urgent. Already this is usually unlocking very, very interesting discussions. And in many cases, it reveals the fact that many organizations, many teams especially, and I'm really working with teams because this is really the the engine or many engines within the organization. So we work very much with teams, and what it reveals is that they don't have a definition of success. So if you don't have a definition of success, how can you determine what is important? So at the end, everything becomes important and urgent, and it really depends more on who is saying something rather than does it really serve our purpose? Does it really serve our definition of success? So that's also something we are working with, and combining all the success definitions of different teams, this will kind of giving you the success definition of the entire company, and then it's just a different a different way of prioritizing.
Mm-hmm. And so you decided to write a book. How did that come about?
You mean why I wrote the book?
Yes.
Basically, to cut a long story short, I wanted to write a book. It was part of my bucket list. Let's put it this way. One of my what I call it big five. Something I wanted to do in life. I wanted to write a book, but the original intention was to write a book for my daughter. She turned 19 in January. And it's kind of, 6, 7, 8 years ago that I thought, okay, I think I should write a book for my daughter with all the wisdom I have and all the nice recommendations I have. And that was basically the original intent. Then she was growing up, and with all my good advices that I was giving at the dining table, she almost said, Dad, fine, I hear you. Can you please put it in your book? Uh, so the interest was minor, I would say. And then when I went to the sport psychological education, I thought, okay, maybe that is the better contribution to the world rather than a book that I wrote for my daughter. I will still do it, but maybe at a later stage.
And you talked about, the younger people coming into the workplace and those differences. And I was just reflecting with you saying that my daughter's 19. And I just sort of thinking, do I see her behaving differently to me? And I think I do. I'm not so sure I do from a corporate perspective. I haven't sort of seen that bit yet. But can you, some people say that the generational stuff, isn't that relevant and people aren't any different. Other people, talk about, I don't know, entitlement and how everything's changing and all that sort of stuff. Where are you on that sort of spectrum of thinking about the generations and how different we all are?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I'm not a big fan of putting any people into generational boxes. I'm definitely far away from that. Of course, we know that the young people they have enjoyed a different environment, right, than us. That's for sure. We understand that people that they have a different value system partly. It's also not if we just take one example. I mean, when I stopped studying and was building my career, it was pretty clear if I work hard enough, I will most likely be able to build a house with a garden and buy me a car and having maybe holidays once a year. This becomes hard these days, right? I mean, you really need to need to work even harder in order to do that. So also the outlook is a little bit changing, right? So that's definitely something I see. Definitely, I also see that the expectations towards the company and towards leadership is increasing because they also have more options than we had, right? They are simply more flexible. And I think that's great. That's great that they have high expectations towards a company and leadership. But what we all have in common, and I think this is more important, is that we are all human beings, and our psychological basic needs, they have not changed over 100 years. They have not even changed over the last 1,000 years, right? We all want to make an impact. We all want to feel competent. We all want to have a certain level of freedom and being in control, and we all want to belong, right? So, and this is something we need to work with. I mean, we don't need to make leadership and all these generational discussions more complex than that. We have more in common than things that are different. We have more in common, and we are all human beings.
Mm. So just let's go back to the sort of thing about the sport coaching and the sort of the focus on results in organisations, because I've just been reflecting that in sport, sort of the result is everything, but most of the effort, as you said at the beginning, and most of the focus for everybody goes into the training and the development and the sort of strategies and everything else. It feels like that is what most people, even spectators, see of the sporting process, if you like. But that, as you said, is not how it is in organisations in the main. How do we sort of get to the stage where that is the case? I mean, obviously, we do discuss results, we do discuss what people do to get those results, but I think the focus is very much the opposite, as you said, than it is in the sporting world.
Right. And also to be completely honest here, I mean, definitely results are also in the world of sports, of course, the decisive thing, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to debate this. Definitely, it's sometimes it's even worse. But as you said, the focus is a different one, and it's always about unleashing the potential of the individual. It's also a little bit more strengths based, and yeah, how are we doing this in organizations? As I just said, we try to help people to understand themselves a little bit better with all the strengths you have. We also let them understand, okay, what happens if you overdo your strength? That's a part of our philosophy, that we are not working so much with weaknesses. Also in sports, you work with your special abilities, right? With these competencies that you really master compared to others, and you work with them, and you make sure that all the other basic abilities you need or competencies you need, that they are at least on a level that will not limit you, right? And that's also something we work with, or we work with when we work with companies. So understand your strengths, understand what happens when you overdo it, but still working on these, let's say, key signature characteristics or signature strengths. That's definitely one thing we are working with, and then it's really almost trivial. I mean, we work on, how do we conduct a meeting, right? And just understand, checking your mindset, checking your attitude before you enter a meeting. A meeting can be highly efficient, and a meeting can be waste of time. And we're always saying we have too many meetings. I'm not even sure that we have too many meetings. We have just too many meetings where we don't know the purpose, where we have invited the wrong contributors, where people not even know how to contribute to the meeting. They don't know how to behave. They have never learned how to listen, to understand each other. They have, and all this kind of stuff, right? So we help. We have companies who learned to, calm down for 60 seconds before they start a meeting, just to, enter the room, breathe, and understand, why am I here? What's the purpose of the meeting? And how can I be of best service for the room rather
Mm.
for myself? So
Mm.
all these little tiny things, if you add them up, they will deliver you results.
Mm. I think that's so much more important in these days of so many Teams and Zoom meetings as well, isn't it? That when most of your meetings were in real life, you had a sort of gap between them, and when you got there was a bit of chat and banter before you started. Whereas I do feel sometimes you get back-to-back Teams meetings and little time to have that chat before you start. So actually building that in formally does make some sense.
And that's a good point, by the way. I think if I look at calendars of the executives I'm working with, there's almost no space. There's no
Mm.
room to
Yeah.
reflect, and that's also something we are helping leaders with, that they build room and space for reflection, because that's
Mm.
also one thing, or that's basically the one thing why we are becoming better. We are always saying we are We are learning more from mistakes and failures rather than from successes. But the truth is, the only reason for that is that we reflect more on failures and mistakes than successes.
Mhm.
So I would say the trick is not to fail more and to risk more, but to reflect more. And this is really the room where people are getting better. If I just take an example of the handball team that I'm working with, I mean, every Monday we have a 1 hour reflection. We are watching the good scenes, the bad scenes. What could we have done better? What have we done very good? And we are reflecting together in order to in order to be prepared for the next weekend, for the next match. That means we are reflecting basically forward looking. And that's something we are not very good at in business, because when things are going well, we forget to reflect. We are just saying, this is because we are good, or this is because we are a great management team, and we are almost taking it for granted. We start reflecting when things are not so good, but then we are also not very good in reflecting. In many cases, we are more looking for the root cause, and we are blaming each other, and we are restructuring, and we are asking for the extra mile, and we need to work harder, and that's kind of our default mechanism. But the right mechanism would be let's reflect, but let's reflect
Yes.
no matter the result.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Very good point. Well, we've come to the end of our half an hour. It's gone really quickly. Thank you, Markus. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, very welcome. Thank you very much for having me, Joe.
Lovely. And just to let you know, as a listener, that Andy Gorham's back next week talking to Bill Benjamin about the last 8%. That's an intriguing title.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.